Welcome to the Unitarian Universalist Fellowship of Columbus, Georgia. I'm Bill Harlan, your volunteer service leader. We just listened to the liturgical stylings of our accompanist, Whitaker Locke. Thank you, Whitaker. He was playing hymn 298, Wake Now My Senses, from Singing the Living Tradition. And Whitaker chose a really appropriate hymn. Matter of fact, all the music this morning is appropriate to today's focus, which is going to be on the seventh principle of Unitarian Universalism. We're going to talk a lot about that today, but just to get us in the mood, and usually we have our great choir singing the words, and we've missed that, so I'm going to read just a portion of the first verse that will kind of set the tone for this morning's service. The hymn is Wake Now My Senses. Wake now my senses and hear the earth call. Feel the deep power of being in all. Those words really speak to me. Deep power of being. And I think that's going to be something to really see if we can feel within ourselves this morning. We describe ourselves as an inclusive spiritual community. We don't share a creed. And in fact, we really probably don't even share an agreement about what exactly spirituality means. But that's a rat hole to go down for another service, or a rabbit hole, I should say. Boy, that was an unfortunate metaphor. What we do share is a commitment to support each other in our own varied, unique, responsible searches for truth and meaning. And we do that within the seven principles, within a framework of the seven principles of Unitarian Universalism. So this morning we will focus on the seventh principle, respect for the interdependent web of all existence of which we are a part. So thank you, Whitaker, for kicking that off. Now I'd like to turn the service over to David Rush, our technology guru, who's going to just explain or give us a short refresher course on how we can enjoy this Zoom service this morning. David, if you will.
Thank you, Bill. As always, we're recording this for posting to YouTube later. Of course, we invite everyone to join our YouTube channel, and you can go back and watch this service and any service many times. All your faces will possibly show up in the video from time to time. If you don't want that to happen, you can click on the stop video button, but we like seeing your faces. And yes, during our joys and concerns and our Q&A discussion and social time afterwards, if you don't want to use your voice and talk to us, you can use the chat feature. Click on that. You can type whatever you want, and one of us will read it out to the group as necessary. So back to you, Bill.
Thank you, David. Tuesday, this day after tomorrow, is February 2nd, which is Groundhog Day, and I think we all know what happens on Groundhog Day in Punxsutawney, Pennsylvania. And I think most of us are also aware that a family of our members, the Neale family, recently moved to Punxsutawney. They're there now, and that's Jason Neale's hometown, and Danielle is there, and all their children are there with them, freezing in the snow up in Punxsutawney. And Danielle is going to talk to us today in a couple different parts. She's going to talk to us about Groundhog Day. We're going to get a little tour of Punxsutawney, and then she's going to talk live on this Zoom call. So it's a little bit different kind of a talk. We're going to have a Q&A, but as David mentioned, our Q&A session, of course, will occur after the final hymn when we no longer record the service. So please do stay tuned. I have some other announcements too. I have our ongoing announcement that we're still collecting warm jackets and coats for Paz Amigos, and blankets and underwear for the Homeless Resource Network. We've got collection boxes on the front porch here at UU, and we continue to support through our fellowship the Feeding the Valley Food Bank. So you can make those contributions to either in a check to UUFC or, and actually I'm informed by our president, Hal Majette, our real president, that our PayPal account is working just fine now, so continue using that. Next Sunday, February 7th, will be Rick Spradlin will be our service leader, talking about a UU-related topic to be determined. And then on February 14th, we're going to have another unusual service. We will meet together briefly, and that service will actually probably start about 10:45, and we will meet together just to have some fellowship over Zoom. And then at 11, we are going to join a National Unitarian Universalist Association service, and it's part of the annual 30 Days of Love, which UU does every year. And this service, Standing with Love Sunday, will focus on 4 themes from a report, kind of a controversial report, actually, even within UU, from Widening the Circle of Concern. And what this report has done, it's made recommendations for transforming white supremacy and other oppressions in the institutional history and practices of UUA, and it's more than 1,000 congregations. So, you know, there might be some things in this that are hard to listen to. Might be some things in this service that challenge us to think about things. It's not necessarily saying we agree with all of them, but it's going to be an intellectually and emotionally challenging service that will bring together all UUs, and I hope you'll all join us. That's February 14th. So let's light the chalice. The chalice speaks to us of reason, tolerance, and freedom, but also respect, compassion, and love. And speaking of the 7 principles of UU, let's affirm those 7 principles now. 1, the worth and dignity of every person. 2, justice, equity, and compassion in human relations. 3, acceptance of one another and encouragement to spiritual growth in our congregations. 4, a free and responsible search for truth and meaning, which is what we're doing every Sunday. 5, the right of conscience and the use of the democratic process within our congregations and in society at large. And I think you can see the sticker on my laptop is an I voted sticker, and I know virtually all of you have done that too. Number 6, the goal of world community with peace, liberty, and justice for all. And 7, my personal favorite, respect for the interdependent web of all existence of which we are a part. One of the ways we proclaim the vitality of our fellowship is through sharing brief and personal joys and concerns. So I am going to start the ball rolling by adding a joy this morning. I talked with Larry Summerhour, our faithful choir member and a great member of our fellowship who had a stroke, I don't know, maybe 3 weeks ago, almost 4 weeks ago. And we've all been very worried about Larry, and I got to tell you, when I called him yesterday, he was at home. And he's got home health care, and he's doing physical therapy, and he's walking 30 minutes a day. And on the telephone, at least, he sounded like the old Larry. And he said he loves the fellowship, loves the people here, Unitarian through and through, and he's going to be back soon taking names and kicking some part of an appendage, which I won't mention on a Sunday service. So that's a great joy to have Larry back with us. I'm also going to add I know this is a time for personal concerns, but we all now have family members and friends who have had COVID-19. And the results have been very mixed. They range from barely felt anything to no longer with us. So I'm just going to light a candle for all those people that have touched the people in our fellowship. And now I'm going to ask David and Elise to look around and see if there are some other joys and concerns. I'll mute myself while I do this.
Go ahead, Judy. You'll have to unmute yourself first.
It is still a COVID request, but my granddaughter, who's at Tulane, just came down positive with COVID this week. She's doing fine, but just think about her. She made it through first semester, but didn't quite make it through second.
I'll light a candle for her, and I didn't mean to usurp anybody's individual joy or concern with that.
Okay.
If you have a concern and you'd like to light a candle, just let us know.
Connie and Ron have one. Would you like to say it or would you like me to read it? Right, he wants me to read it. As much as we miss seeing everyone, it is a joy on such a rainy morning to be able to join virtually while staying home and staying dry. And I think they miss everybody.
Hear, hear.
That's from Connie and Ron Ussery. We miss you too and love you. Is there anyone else that has a joy or concern? Well, I'll add one then. I have a joy and a concern. My joy is that my son put in an offer on a house, which was accepted, and my concern is that it took every penny he owns. So it's a joy and a concern at the same time.
I think it's appropriate to light a candle for your offspring's financial decisions.
There you go. Susan has something that she'd like to say. Go ahead, Susan.
Please light a candle for all the hardworking medical people who are trying desperately to set things up to vaccinate people, because it has been a horrific mess. They're working with programs that are not of their own design, and anybody who's had any contact with computers knows what that can be like. Fun is not the word one would use to describe it, because the programs often don't meet the needs of the users. So those folks definitely need a candle of support.
Thank you, Susan. That's so true. And Ellen and I were fortunate enough to get our first round of shots. And I have to say it was run by a combination of Piedmont hospital staff and paramedics from various organizations and National Guard personnel. And it was really efficiently run here in Georgia. So I know there's been some problems in Georgia, but when they turned it over to the local Georgians, they're really coming through for us. So thank you, Susan. I appreciate that.
Also, Ron has another joy, I guess. Roof repairs at UU have been completed. I would consider that to be a joy. And he said we are testing it out today. So.
And I'm here to tell you that bucket over there is dry.
There you go.
Hallelujah.
Great. I think I've spoken to Ron twice when he's been on the roof, unfortunately. Either he spends an awful lot of time on that roof or I just have great timing, one or the other.
Side note to Ron, when you're on the roof, don't answer the phone. That's a suggestion. I think that's the 8th principle.
There you go.
Okay, anybody else? All right, thank you all. It's time for our celebration of life toast. You know the drill. It's unique to this fellowship. It's not a sacrament. It's just a warm tradition written by our own Ed Wilson. You can join in with a cup of coffee or the beverage of your choice. And I invite you to lift your cups or glasses with me. I'll read the toast and we'll all join together in the last line. We celebrate life with its beauty and its pain. We lift these cups in tribute to the achievements of human minds and hands, and in sensitivity to the frustrations of misfortune and heartache, not fixing blame or credit for the outcome of chance, sensing the risk, savoring the joy, sharing it all, knowing of the certainty of death, and remembering the value of each moment. We drink our toast of celebration to this time, to the future, to each other, to the throbbing of the earth and sea and sky with life together. We drink this toast in celebration of life. This morning's offering will now be given and received in the spirit of grateful fellowship. You can mail your offerings since we're on Zoom. Please mail them to UUFC at P.O. Box 698, Fortson, Georgia, Fortson, Georgia, 31808. Elise is posting that in the chat. I also, as I mentioned earlier, got a report from Hal Bajet that our PayPal is working just fine, so you can log on to your PayPal account. It's easy and fun. You know, you can add, I think, 3 or 4% if you want, and that means that we get all of your donation rather than minus PayPal's fee. So while you search for a stamp or an envelope or your checkbook or you log into PayPal, Whitaker Locke is going to play something for us, and it's kind of a tune that I decided would be very appropriate for a talk about Groundhog Day. And it'll be a little bit of a popular culture quiz for you. It's not a usual hymn that you would hear at a UU. It was written by that great liturgical composer, Sonny Bono. Whitaker. Thank you, Whitaker Locke. And just, I have to do a parenthetical remark here. Of course, that was I Got You, Babe. And the movie Groundhog Day, which Danielle will touch on very briefly, was basically about a reporter who has to, who's a television reporter who discovers he has to relive the same day over and over again, Groundhog Day, until eternity. And his day always starts with Sonny and Cher singing "I Got You, Babe" on his clock radio. So I thought, well, this will be a nice little ditty, and Whitaker can just, he'll be able to just sit down and sight read this. So I sent him the score, and then a few hours later, I actually looked at the score, and I think it's in 12/8 time with a whole bunch of other things. So basically what I did was ruin Whitaker's Saturday. So thank you, Whitaker. Now it's time for our talk. We all know Danielle Neale's bio because we've been saying it several times a month since she moved to Pennsylvania. She's become a regular speaker and a reader of readings since moving to Punxsutawney. And by the way, the locals call it Punxsy. Her two-part talk this morning will start with a video that she made yesterday from Punxsutawney. Quite interesting. She'll take us on a little tour and talk about some origins of Groundhog Day. And then Danielle will join us. She's on the Zoom call. She'll join us live. She's got a few things to add because she then met a select group of people, kind of the people who secretly run Punxsutawney. I guess they're called the Inner Circle. She had some interesting talks with them. So let's cue up Danielle from Punxsutawney, Pennsylvania.
Thank you for joining me in Punxsutawney. This sleepy borough of Jefferson County, Pennsylvania has opened its doors every February 2nd since 1887 to help celebrate their most famous resident, Punxsutawney Phil, the world's best-known weatherman, who, as legend has it, can predict the coming of an early spring. However, this prognosticator isn't a professional weatherman. Phil is, in fact, a groundhog. Many of you have heard of Phil and Groundhog's Day, but are likely to be under the impression that it is a modern holiday to fill the gap between New Year's and Valentine's Day. However, this tradition is older than the town that has made it famous, and older still than the country that helped celebrate it. In fact, Groundhog Day, like many of the topics I speak about, has its origins deeply rooted within pagan tradition. Even the date of February 2nd isn't a coincidence, as it's the last day of Imbolc, a pagan Gaelic holiday which is situated between the winter and spring equinoxes. In addition to hearth fires and special foods, one of the main components of Imbolc is weather divination and searching for omens. Since the holidays marks the beginning of spring, many want to know if they can expect warmer weather or more cold days ahead. But these predictions weren't provided by a groundhog, since they're only native to North America. Instead, pagans relied on snakes, badgers, and bears as omens for the weather. One Scottish proverb talks of a serpent. The serpent will come from the hole on the brown day of bride, though there should be 3 feet of snow on the flat surface of the ground. Another Gaelic tradition is based on Cailleach, the divine hag. On this day, she gathers her firewood for the rest of the winter. Legend has it that if she wishes to make the winter last a good while longer, she will make sure the weather on Imbolc is bright and sunny, so she can gather plenty of firewood. Therefore, people would be relieved if Imbolc is a day of foul weather, as it means the Cailleach is asleep and winter is almost over. Imbolc is also known as St. Bridget Day in Ireland, and also contains weather predictions, whereby the day of St. Bridget Day festival should show signs of improving weather, but if it's too good, it's an omen of bad weather to come. Very similar to what we want on Groundhog Day, since sunny conditions, like the one we have right now, would ultimately produce a shadow. Eventually, as Christianity spread through Europe, the day would later be known as Candlemas. This Christian celebration commemorates the presentation of baby Jesus at the temple, and it's described in chapter 2 of the Gospel of Luke in the New Testament. Like many Christian holidays, this too retains some pagan traditions. For instance, in the United Kingdom, good weather at Candlemas is taken to indicate severe winter weather later, which is reflected in this rhyme. If Candlemas Day is clear and bright, winter will have another bite. If Candlemas Day brings cloud and rain, winter is gone and will not come again. It's also alleged to be the date that bears emerge from hibernation to inspect the weather. So if they choose to return to their dens, it's interpreted as meaning severe weather will continue for at least another 40 days. Like many European traditions, Imbolc, St. Bridget's Day, and Candlemas all made their way to the U.S. with immigrant settlers. It's likely that Groundhog Day is no exception and was originally one of these holidays brought over by the Pennsylvania Dutch. In fact, the first known mention of this was in a storekeeper's diary from 1841, which describes a groundhog seeing its shadow on the day of German Candlemas.
They sent them in, they paid for it.
Today, Groundhog Day has no religious affiliation for the residents and visitors in Punxsutawney, but there are still vestiges of the past, including official proceedings conducted here on this stage in Pennsylvania Dutch by a group of local dignitaries known as the Inner Circle. Its members congregate here at Gobbler's Knob wearing top hats and speak to the groundhog in groundhogese. This year will be a little different, though, as they have canceled in-person proceedings and are instead conducting Phil's weather reveal virtually. The town in general rolls out the red carpet for Phil on this day, and there are many markers around town celebrating his fame, including the Fantastic Phils. That's spelled with a PH. There are 31 of these guys spread out around town and a favorite photo op spot for visiting tourists. If you can't make it to Punxsutawney on Groundhog Day, no worries, you can still visit Phil at his home in the local library anytime during the year. There is even a movie created about the day, appropriately named Groundhog Day, starring Bill Murray and Andy McDowell, in which a weatherman is doomed to live the same day, Groundhog Day, over and over again until he learns to be a better person. Based on some sources, he relives the day for 8 years, 8 months, and 16 days. Another fun fact, the movie wasn't actually filmed in Punxsutawney. But what I find most interesting is the human reliance on nature during a time when people have tried their best to remove themselves from the natural world. We have homes that shield us from the elements. We have cities commonly called concrete jungles. Yet here we are, practicing centuries-old tradition that relied on natural animal instincts to help us plan for the days ahead. Whether humans like to admit it or not, we are still part of an interconnected web with all creatures, including groundhogs, and yes, even horses named Janice. So in closing, when Chekhov saw the long winter, he saw a winter bleak and dark and bereft of hope. Yet we know that winter is just another step in the cycle of life. But standing here among the people of Punxsutawney and basking in the warmth of their hearths and hearts, I couldn't imagine a better fate than a long and lustrous winter. From Punxsutawney, this is Danielle Neale. So long.
Thanks. Thank you for that. So after I had finished my recording at Gobbler's Knob, and you might have seen the men when you saw that 360 shot, but those men were part of the Inner Circle, and so I got to talk to them and just kind of pick their brain about what the Inner Circle is, who Phil is, and how they operate. Well, the Inner Circle is made up of 12 members who are elected. It is a non-paid position, and it's a life appointment. So you basically retire or die from the position. And a lot of times your children can take over for you. And what I thought was interesting, I got to talk to the vice president of the Inner Circle. And he was saying, usually individuals who have resources within town, good connections to the community, they're more likely to be elected, and that they've never had any females within the inner circle. Well, the vice president has 4 daughters, and so it's very likely that one of his daughters will actually represent one of the first, if not the first, female to join the inner circle. But they take care of everything for Groundhog's Day. They, you'll notice that at my closing, they had little cardboard cutouts. Well, because they're doing virtual this year, they actually have 160 cutouts of individuals, 160 individuals that paid to put their pictures up. And actually, none of them are Punxsutawney residents, which I thought was very funny. They're all from outside of town. And if any of you recognize my closing, that was actually taken directly from the movie Groundhog Day. It's one of the closings that Bill Murray does while he's doing his news broadcast. So I thought that was a nice tip of the hat and fitting to put into my talk. But yeah, so it's a non-paid position to be part of the inner circle. You'll notice that there are 2 scrolls. Excuse me. There are 2 scrolls, and they let Phil out. And when they get his prediction, the chancellor will point to one of the scrolls that has, the prediction on it, and they'll read the scroll aloud. Now, I asked the vice president, what was his prediction for this upcoming, Groundhog Day, and he said that he could not tell me because he was the one who wrote the scrolls and he didn't want to give it away. I also asked them, how did they appoint a new Phil? And they informed me that there has never been a new Phil, that Phil has always existed, and that once a year in September, they have an elixir of life ceremony that they will give Phil publicly so that he may continue living. But there has never been a new Phil. So I look forward, if they hold it this year, I look forward to attending that ceremony in September. So maybe I'll do a presentation of the elixir of life ceremony. But yet, Rick, it is called Kylock. So that's the hag that goes out and finds her wood for the winter, unless you were talking about St. Bridget Day. That's the festival. So, all right, Bill, I will pass it back over to you and
Thank you, Danielle.
accept questions afterwards.
That was fantastic, and I love it. And even though I've seen that movie at least 12 or 13 times, I did not recognize the last line, which is pretty prominent in the movie. So thank you for letting me know that. I thought, boy, that Danielle, she's a great writer. So nice job. And remember to stick around after our final hymn, and Danielle will be open to questions. So I think it's time to wrap this enterprise up. We extinguish the chalice here that it might glow gently in our hearts. May it light your path as you leave this place. Looks like the chalice extinguished itself naturally. Could be a spiritual message, I'm not sure. Now for our closing words. With unity of spirit, we go our ways in universal fellowship until we meet again. Whitaker, would you please play us home with hymn number 137 from Singing the Living Tradition, God Who Fills the Universe.